Hello everybody. In today's video, I'm going to do a deep dive on the text-to-image functionality of Adobe Firefly. And if this is your first time to my channel, I recommend you go to my playlist section. And if you don't have an Adobe Firefly account yet, I show you how to get on the waitlist in this first video. So make sure to have your Adobe account set up with Firefly Access before you get started. So after you log into your Adobe account, come to this URL called firefly.adobe.com and go to this section called text to image on the left. While this is similar to a lot of other AI image generators, I think this is one of the best ones to get started if you are new to prompt engineering. So to get started, just click this generate button and it opens up its image generator interface with a lot of pre-existing examples that you can work with. If you see in the bottom, this beta version of Adobe Firefly currently only accepts prompts in English. So if you have been trying prompts in any other languages, this might not be ready yet. But to get started, you can either start typing something here, or you can get ideas from any of the existing images on the home page. For example, this one shows an iguana with a great fashion sense, and this one is a giant octopus invading New York City. You might have noticed that a lot of these examples shown on the home page are actually pretty simple. The prompts are not super long, as I've seen in some of the home pages of Playground AI. That's because the UI that Adobe Firefly has is actually pretty intuitive, and it doesn't require you to add a lot of words in your prompt if you don't want to. So to get started, you can just click try prompt on any of these examples. So I'm going to choose this one and click try prompt. So let me go over the structure a little bit so you can see how easy Adobe Firefly has made it for beginners to get started. For example, a lot of AI tools put a lot of emphasis on this main prompt. So you have to get really creative and think this through before you even get started. And sometimes you might get disappointing results if you don't know things like maximalism even exists. So what Adobe Firefly has done is it has created this drop-down where a lot of the main things that can improve your picture is just provided as a drop-down. For example, if you go to my Playground AI playlist and go to this video called Close-Up and Macro, I show you a few prompts that you can use to get macro photography or close-up shots. But in Adobe Firefly, you don't need to think that through. You can just click on composition and go to macro photography, and this will just add the style of macro photography in your prompt right here. So you don't need to think this through. And just like macro photography, it provides a bunch of options for composition that you may or may not know. For example, I know about close-up and wide angle, but I did not know about narrow depth of field. And sometimes our generations are not that great, not because we're not creative, it's mostly because we do not know that something exists. So Adobe Firefly does a great job in providing these three sections in the bottom where they have color and tone, lighting, and composition, which are pretty important concepts for art and photography, and Adobe knows that. They have been in the photo industry for a long time, and they don't make any assumptions. Like a lot of other AI tools assume that you know what studio lighting is or what a muted color means. And since I don't like making assumptions for my own videos, I really like that Adobe Firefly has placed these three sections which are critical to all kind of image generations right in front, without trying to hide it. I think the most effort that most AI tools have been doing is to provide an aspect ratio and maybe some styles to work with. But if you're a beginner, I think it's important to understand the importance of these three sections. So I recommend you to play around with the color and tone, the different kinds of lightings, and the different kinds of compositions before going for any of these filters. Because these filters, while they do make things easier, they're sort of like Instagram filters. You don't need to learn much about composition or lighting if you just click on any of these things and the art just generates in that style similar to an Instagram filter. I don't think that is the right way to proceed. Now that I've shown what I think is the most important part of Adobe Firefly's image generator, let me go over its other features. There's a bunch of different styles you can work with. There's techniques like painting, splattering, doodle, oil painting. There's effects like bokeh effect, fish eye, misty, isometric. There's concepts like chaotic, divine, simple. And there's themes like pixel art, concept art, 3D art. A lot of times if you're using tools like Midjourney or Leonardo AI, you kind of have to know that these things exist and have a cheat sheet on the side when you're generating your images. But Adobe Firefly does a great job at kind of making this upfront and making this almost a requirement to think through before you do your generations. And also in the bottom, you can always see what has been enabled, so you kind of know what to expect every time you generate an image. And if you want to start from scratch, it will remove all the styles you've been playing around with. The next section is the content type. There's only 4 of them here. There's none, photo, graphic, and art. If you want your picture to be more realistic, I recommend using the photo filter. And if you want it to be more on the artistic side, you can use this art content type. And the last section here is the aspect ratio. For example, if you want your images for the phone, it's going to provide you 3:4 versions of the same generations that you might use in an Instagram post or something else on social media. I can totally see this image, especially if you animate it a little bit on the background of something like meditation music or relaxing sounds. If you want to download this image, you can just click this download button right here, and it's going to add some credentials, which is going to say that you can't really use this image for commercial use because this is on a beta version of Adobe Firefly. Next, if you click on these 3 buttons right here, there's a bunch of options which pop up. You can use this as a reference image, either report the image if you think there's something inappropriate. You can copy this to your clipboard or submit this to the Firefly gallery. Now, if you like a specific style of image and want to keep everything else same in the prompt, you can just click this button on the left which says show similar, and it's going to create variations of the same image on the fly. Now you can keep creating variations of the same image if you want to create a collection of some sort. Now I'm going to use a character I've used in a bunch of AI art tools just to see how it compares with Adobe Firefly. So I'm going to go ahead with female alchemist in the forest. So I'm going to do a first generation without any add-ons. Alright, I think some of the first generations without much details are coming out pretty well. I actually like how her face gets generated here really well because there's no deformities in any of the faces here. And they look kind of photorealistic in a way. Now let me try to do the same generation but actually add a photo aspect to it. Somehow that kind of created issues with the faces here a little bit. Now like I mentioned, it's easy to pick any of these themes because they are similar to like Instagram filters, but I think it's a better approach if you play around with the lighting a little bit. So I'm going to clear all filters and just try out the different kinds of lighting. So I'm going to say backlighting. Now you see how this can be helpful for beginners to learn what backlighting effect means in image generations or even in photography. Now let me try golden hour. Cool, this definitely looks like something which was generated during the dusk, and I think I like the quality of the hands here quite a bit. They look pretty photorealistic. I don't know what's happening to this hand, but this one looks decent, and her face looks pretty good too. Alright, now let's play around with the composition a little bit and do something like shot from above. You see how the effect of the photo changes if you take it from the top. Alright, let me change the composition to close up. I usually use the close-up shot as a text prompt, but as you see, Adobe Firefly makes it really easy to play around with composition. It's just a part of a drop-down. There is no option to upscale yet because I think it's still in beta, but I'm sure that's coming along soon. Now let me go in a bit of an artistic direction and remove the golden hour and close up, and I'm going to change my content type to art. Cool, now it has stopped generating realistic images and giving me more artistic designs. Now there's a lot more things you can try with an art variation because there's no realism you have to work with. My personal favorite for art that you might have seen in my Better Landscapes video is the palette knife. So the palette knife style gives you these variations of images which look like it has been designed by a real painter, and there's a lot of leeway here because you're not expected to have perfect fingers, but I really like these strokes that look like they have been done using a palette knife. I'm hoping Adobe comes with an upscaler soon because I would love to upscale this image and print it out. Another cool style you might want to play around with is the actual material used in art. For example, if you say yarn, you see how the designs of the dress is completely changed using yarn. Another version of this is the fur material. This seems similar to the volatile filter that Playground AI used to have. Like you see, this image was generated using the volatile filter. Now let me add some actions to this, and I always start with dancing. So let me see what it generates first. Alright, these came out pretty cool. I think they actually have multiple ethnicities in the same generation, which is pretty rare. Let me try 4 variations of this generation to see if it replicates the whole design of the dress, or maybe it changes the background. Alright, I think there has been some changes in the background. I really like the color composition here, but if you want more of a specific color, you can actually try that out in the prompt. So if you say female alchemist dancing in the forest with a blue haze in the background, you see now you have a lot of control in your generations, both with the words and with the templates on the right. So I think Firefly does a pretty good job, whether you rely on words in your prompt or choose to use templates on the right. I'm going to try adding a couple of creatures to this prompt to see how it reacts. I requested a cheetah and it gave me quite a few variations. There's one where she has 2 hands and holding a cheetah. I think it's a skeleton of a cheetah. And there's this one where it's a cheetah on the left, and the alchemist now looks more African. So I think Firefly allows you a lot of flexibility regardless of the route you choose. Like personally, I like using the text prompts because it helps me work with my own creativity, but a lot of people might prefer these templates because then they can get to a result much faster without experimenting as much as I do. But I think you got the idea of how Firefly works and why its image generator is unique. I think the overall design of this product is way better than a lot of other ones I've seen, and that makes sense because it's Adobe and they have been doing this for a while. But that's all I have for you today. I hope you got some value from this video, and if you did enjoy it, make sure to click the like button and subscribe to my channel. Till the next one, thank you so much.